The night enveloped the city in a cloak of mystery as a woman tormented by her past heard a distant howl. Following that sound, she found an abandoned baby protected by an enigmatic gray coyote. The encounter awakened questions that no one could answer, connecting them in an inexplicable way. That night, without knowing it, marked the beginning of an adventure that would change her life forever. Before hearing this true story, remember to subscribe to the channel to learn more exciting stories like this one. Night fell over Denver like a cold, heavy blanket. In a small apartment in the Cherry Creek neighborhood, Emily Parker, a 35-year-old woman, sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. Her face, marked by melancholy, reflected the weight of a decision she had made 15 years ago that still tormented her. The silence of her apartment was interrupted only by the ticking of the clock and the occasional honk of a car on the street. Emily slowly got up, moving towards a small wooden box that she carefully kept in the back of her closet. With trembling hands, she opened it, revealing a crumpled photograph of a newborn baby. A tear rolled down her cheek as she caressed the image with her fingertips. "Olivia," she whispered, her voice breaking with contained emotion. "Where are you now, my little girl?" The memory of that day in the hospital when she gave her daughter up for adoption hit her hard. She was barely a scared teenager, without resources and abandoned by the child's father. At that moment, she believed she was doing the right thing, giving her daughter the chance to have a better life. But the void left by that decision had never been filled. Emily carefully closed the box as if by doing so, she could also contain the pain that threatened to overwhelm her. She approached the kitchen, looking for something that could distract her from her thoughts. It was then that she heard it, a distant, melancholic howl that seemed to echo her own loneliness. Intrigued, Emily looked out the window. The sound seemed to come from a vacant lot nearby at the foot of Red Rocks Park. Without thinking twice, she grabbed her coat and left the apartment. The night was cold, and a fine drizzle fell over the city, but something in that howl compelled her to investigate. As she approached the vacant lot, Emily's heart was pounding. The darkness was almost total, barely broken by the dim light of a distant street lamp. Suddenly, a movement in the bushes made her stop. There, in the midst of the undergrowth, she saw two bright eyes watching her. "Hello?" she called out with a trembling voice. "Is anyone there?" In response, she heard a soft whimper. Emily took a step forward, and then she saw it. A gray coyote, medium-sized, was curled up protectively around a bundle. With her heart in her throat, she moved closer and stifled a cry of surprise. The bundle was a baby, precariously wrapped in a dirty blanket. The coyote, instead of showing aggression, looked at her with almost human eyes, as if it were evaluating her. Slowly, it moved away from the baby, allowing Emily to approach. With trembling hands, Emily took the baby in her arms. It was a boy, no more than a few weeks old, crying weakly. "Oh my God," she murmured, cradling him against her chest. "So who left you here, little one?" The coyote let out a soft howl, as if answering her question. Emily looked at it, surprised by its behavior. "Have you been taking care of him?" she asked, feeling a strange connection with the animal. Without knowing exactly why, Emily made a decision at that moment. She couldn't leave the baby there, and for some reason she felt she couldn't abandon the coyote either. "Come with me," she said, addressing both the baby and the animal. "I'll take you home." The coyote, as if understanding, obediently followed her as she returned to her apartment. Emily knew what she was doing was crazy, but something inside told her it was the right thing to do. Back in the safety of her home, Emily cleaned and fed the baby with warm milk. The coyote lay down in a corner, watching attentively every movement. As the little one slept in her arms, Emily felt a warmth she hadn't experienced in years. "I'll call you Sam," she whispered to the baby. Then, looking at the coyote, she added, "And you'll be gray." That night, while the city slept, Emily remained awake, gently rocking in a chair with Sam in her arms and Gray at her feet. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel alone. But in the back of her mind, a question persisted. What secrets did this strange trio hide that fate had brought together? What Emily didn't know was that this night marked the beginning of an adventure that would change her life forever. As dawn approached, a series of events were set in motion, events that would lead her to face her past, rediscover love, and perhaps find the redemption she so longed for. The sound of sirens in the distance startled her. Were they looking for the baby? What would happen if they discovered she had brought him home? And more importantly, what would she do with a coyote in her apartment? Emily looked out the window, watching as the first lights of day began to appear on the horizon. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time she felt a spark of hope in her heart. Little did she know that this was just the beginning of a series of events that would test her courage, her love, and her faith. Fate had woven an intricate web, and Emily, Sam, and Gray were now at the center of it. As the sun rose over Denver, Emily made a decision. No matter what came, she would protect Sam and Gray with all her might. And maybe, just maybe, in the process, she would find her way back to her own lost daughter. What Emily couldn't imagine was that at that very moment, in another part of the city, a 15-year-old girl named Olivia was waking up startled from a dream in which a gray coyote was guiding her through a dark forest towards the arms of a woman whose face she couldn't see clearly. The days following Sam and Gray's arrival were a whirlwind of emotions and challenges for Emily. Every sound in the hallway startled her, fearing that someone would discover her secret. Keeping a coyote hidden in a small apartment in the heart of Denver proved to be an almost impossible task. One afternoon, while Emily was trying to calm Sam's crying, someone knocked on the door. Her heart stopped for an instant. Mrs. Parker. The voice of her neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, resonated from the other side. "Is everything all right? I've been hearing strange noises lately." Emily looked panikedly at Gray, who was lying quietly in a corner. "Everything's fine, Mrs. Thompson," she replied, trying to keep calm. "I'm just watching a movie. A movie with baby cries and animal howls?" The disbelief in the old woman's voice was palpable. Before Emily could respond, Sam let out a loud cry, and Gray, as if wanting to protect him, let out a soft howl. The silence that followed was deafening. "Emily Parker, open this door right now or I'll call the police," Mrs. Thompson threatened. With her heart racing, Emily opened the door, revealing the surreal scene in her apartment, a baby in her arms and a gray coyote sitting obediently at her feet. Mrs. Thompson's eyes widened like saucers. "Holy Mother of God," she muttered. "What have you done, child?" At that moment, Emily knew she had no choice but to trust someone. Through tears, she told Mrs. Thompson the whole story, how she found Sam and Gray, her past with Olivia, and the inexplicable bond she felt with both of them. To her surprise, instead of judging her, Mrs. Thompson hugged her. "Oh, sweetie," she said softly, "fate works in mysterious ways. Maybe this is a second chance for you." That night, with Mrs. Thompson's promise to keep her secret, Emily felt a little less alone. However, new challenges awaited her. The next day, while buying diapers for Sam, Emily came across a poster that made her blood run cold. "Missing baby wanted." The photo showed a newborn that looked a lot like Sam. With trembling hands, Emily tore off the poster and took it home. Was Sam the baby they were looking for? Was she committing a crime by keeping him? That night, while Sam slept and Gray stood guard, Emily cried silently, torn between her desire to protect the baby and the fear of separating him from his real family. What Emily didn't know was that she was being watched. From a car parked in front of her building, a man with a somber appearance was watching her with binoculars. In the passenger seat, an open folder showed a photo of Emily from 15 years ago, along with a detailed report on Olivia. "We found her," the man muttered into his phone. "Should I proceed with the extraction?" The answer he received made a sinister smile appear on his face. "Understood. We'll approach her tomorrow." Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Olivia was waking up startled from another nightmare. In this dream, she saw a woman who looked like her holding a baby, while a coyote protected them from threatening shadows. "Are you okay, honey?" asked her adoptive mother, entering the room. Olivia nodded, but couldn't shake off the feeling that these dreams were more than just nightmares. They were a message, a call she couldn't ignore any longer. "Mom," she said with a trembling voice, "I think it's time for me to look for my birth mother." The expression of shock and pain on her adoptive mother's face was just the beginning of a series of revelations that would shake the foundations of everything Olivia thought she knew about her life. The next morning, Emily was preparing to face another day of uncertainty when the doorbell rang. Upon opening the door, she found herself face to face with two men in suits showing police badges. "Mrs. Emily Parker," one of them asked, "we have some questions about a missing baby." Emily's world began to spin. Behind her, Gray growled softly, as if sensing the imminent danger. What Emily didn't know was that these men were not who they claimed to be, and their intentions went far beyond a simple interrogation about Sam. Fate had set in motion a series of events that would connect past and present, love and loss, in an intricate dance that would change the lives of Emily, Sam, Olivia, and everyone around them forever. Emily felt the ground vanish beneath her feet as the two men stared at her from the threshold of her door. Her heart was beating so hard she feared they could hear it. "Can I see your identifications again, please?" she asked, trying to buy time while her mind frantically searched for a way out. The taller man with dark hair and piercing eyes frowned. "Mrs. Parker, we've already shown you our badges. Now, if you'll allow us to come in." Before Emily could respond, Gray appeared by her side, growling menacingly at the visitors. The men's eyes widened at the sight of the coyote. "What the hell?" muttered the second man, taking a step back. At that precise moment, Sam's cry resonated from the bedroom. Emily took advantage of the distraction to slam the door shut and lock it. "Mrs. Parker, open the door right now," shouted one of the men, pounding hard. Emily ran to Sam, took him in her arms, and looked at Gray. "We have to go," she whispered. As if understanding, Gray headed towards the window that led to the fire escape. Emily, her heart in her throat, followed the coyote. As she hurriedly descended the metal stairs, with Sam clutched to her chest and Gray guiding her, she heard the sound of her apartment door being broken down. On the street, Emily ran aimlessly, following Gray, who seemed to have a destination in mind. After what felt like an eternity, they arrived at a deserted park. Exhausted and terrified, Emily collapsed on a bench. "What are we going to do now?" she sobbed, hugging Sam. In response, Gray howled softly. To Emily's surprise, a figure emerged from among the trees. It was Mrs. Thompson. "I knew you'd come here," said the old woman, approaching. "I saw those men enter the building and knew you were in danger." "But how?" Emily began, confused. Mrs. Thompson smiled mysteriously. "There are many things you don't know about me, child, but now there's no time for explanations. You have to leave the city." She handed Emily a bag with clothes, money, and documents. "Take the next bus to Santa Fe. There, look for my sister, Angela. She'll help you." Emily, still stunned, nodded. Before leaving, she looked at Mrs. Thompson. "How did Gray know where to find you?" The old woman stroked the coyote affectionately. "Coyotes have always been the guardians of our family. This is not just any animal, Emily. It's a spirit guide, sent to protect you and the child." With these enigmatic words resonating in her mind, Emily headed to the bus station, not knowing that her escape was setting in motion a series of events that would change the course of many lives. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Olivia was facing her own challenges. After expressing her desire to search for her birth mother, the tension in her adoptive home was palpable. "I don't understand why you want to do this," said her adoptive father, Mark, with a tense voice. "Haven't we been good parents to you?" Olivia felt tears stinging her eyes. "Of course you have. I love you. But I need to know where I come from." Her adoptive mother, Sarah, exchanged a worried look with Mark. "There's something you need to know, Olivia," she finally said. "Something we've been hiding from you all these years." Olivia's heart raced. "What is it?" Sarah took a deep breath. "Your adoption. It wasn't exactly legal." The revelation fell on Olivia like a bucket of cold water. "What do you mean?" Mark intervened. "We were young and desperate to have a child. A man offered us the opportunity to adopt a baby without going through official channels. We didn't ask questions." Olivia felt the world spinning around her. "Are you saying I was stolen?" Her parents' silence was all the answer she needed. Without another word, Olivia ran out of the house, ignoring Sarah and Mark's cries. She ran aimlessly through the city streets, her mind in chaos. When she finally stopped, exhausted and disoriented, she found herself in front of a small park. And there, sitting on a bench, she saw a woman who looked strangely familiar, holding a baby and accompanied by... Was that a coyote? Olivia blinked, believing she was hallucinating. But when she looked again, the woman, the baby, and the coyote were gone. What Olivia didn't know was that she had just had a fleeting encounter with her birth mother, Emily. Fate had put them mere meters apart, but it wasn't yet time for their reunion. As Emily boarded the bus to Santa Fe and Olivia tried to process the truth about her adoption, the two mysterious men received a call. "We lost them," one of them reported, "but we have a lead on the daughter." The voice on the other end of the line was cold and calculating. "Excellent. Bring me the girl. She'll lead us to the mother and the baby." The board was set, and the pieces were beginning to move in a dangerous game where past and present would collide with unpredictable consequences. The bus advanced on the highway towards Santa Fe, leaving behind the lights of Denver. Emily looked out the window, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. Sam slept peacefully in her arms, oblivious to the chaos surrounding them. Gray, incredibly, had managed to sneak into the luggage compartment, his presence a source of comfort for Emily. As the landscape gradually changed from urban to rural, Emily couldn't help but think about Olivia. Where would her daughter be now? Had she had a good life? Guilt and regret consumed her, but now she had to focus on protecting Sam. In Denver, Olivia wandered the streets, still shocked by her adoptive parents' revelation. Without realizing it, her steps led her to the building where Emily had lived. A hunch made her enter. In the hallway, she encountered an old woman sweeping the floor. "Excuse me," Olivia said. "I'm looking for information about a woman who lived here. Her name is Emily Parker." "Mrs. Thompson looked at her with penetrating eyes. "And why are you looking for Emily, child?" Something in the old woman's gaze made Olivia trust her. I think she might be my birth mother." Mrs. Thompson's eyes widened. Without saying a word, she took Olivia's hand and led her to her apartment. Once inside, she closed the door and turned to the young girl. "Sit down, my dear," she said softly. "I have a lot to tell you." Meanwhile, in Santa Fe, Emily arrived at the address Mrs. Thompson had given her. An older woman, who bore a striking resemblance to Mrs. Thompson, opened the door. "You must be Emily," said Angela. "My sister told me you'd be coming. Come in quickly." Once inside, Angela looked at Gray with a mixture of respect and awe. "So the guardian has returned," she murmured. "What do you mean by that?" asked Emily, confused. Angela sighed. "It's a long story, my dear. A story that goes back generations in our family." While Angela began to reveal long-guarded family secrets, in Denver, the mysterious men were closing in on Olivia. "We have her in sight," one of them reported over the phone. "She's in the building where the mother lived." "Excellent," replied the voice on the other end. "Bring her in. It's time for the family to reunite my way." Inside Mrs. Thompson's apartment, Olivia listened in amazement to the story of her birth mother. "So, Emily has been looking for me all this time?" Mrs. Thompson nodded. "And now, fate has put you on the same path again. But there are dark forces at play, my child, forces that want to keep you apart." Suddenly, there was a loud bang on the door. "Police! Open the door!" Mrs. Thompson paled. "Quick, child, through the fire escape. Go to this address in Santa Fe. There you'll find answers, and your mother." Olivia, her heart racing, took the paper Mrs. Thompson offered and escaped through the window just as the door burst open. In Santa Fe, Emily listened in astonishment to the story Angela was telling her. A story of an ancient family curse, of guardian coyotes, and of a power that was passed down from generation to generation. "But why me?" asked Emily, overwhelmed. "Because you are the chosen one," Angela replied. "And that baby you're carrying, it's no coincidence that you found him. He is the key to breaking the curse." Suddenly, Gray became alert, growling towards the door. Seconds later, there were frantic knocks. Angela stood up, alarmed. "Quick, to the basement. There's a secret passage. You must leave now." As Emily and Sam followed Angela to the basement with Gray at their heels, the front door gave way. At that moment, somewhere between Denver and Santa Fe, Olivia looked out the bus window, clutching tightly the paper with the address Mrs. Thompson had given her. Without knowing it, she was heading straight towards an encounter that would change her life forever. Fate had set its gears in motion, and now mother and daughter were inexorably moving towards each other, while the shadows of the past threatened to engulf them both. Night was falling over Santa Fe, When Emily, with Sam in her arms and Gray by her side, emerged from the secret passage on the outskirts of the city, rain was pouring down, soaking them in seconds. In the distance, thunder rumbled, as if the sky itself wanted to warn them of the danger that lurked. "Where do we go now?" Emily whispered, more to herself than to her companions. Gray, as if answering her question, began to walk, guiding them through little-traveled paths. Meanwhile, on the bus approaching Santa Fe, Olivia struggled against sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, confusing images flooded her mind. A woman with her same face, a crying baby, a coyote howling under the full moon. She shook her head, trying to clear her thoughts. What did these visions mean? Back at Angela's house, the mysterious men were frantically searching every corner. "They're not here," one of them shouted, frustrated. Angela, sitting calmly in a chair, watched them with a mixture of disdain and pity. "You'll never find them," she said serenely. "The Guardian protects them now." The leader of the men approached menacingly. "You're going to tell us everything you know, old woman, or the consequences will be unpleasant." Angela smiled, a smile that spoke of centuries of secrets and power. "Do what you want with me, but remember there are forces in this world that are beyond your comprehension." At that moment, a distant howl resonated in the night, making the men shudder involuntarily. Emily, Sam, and Gray arrived at a small cabin hidden deep in the forest. It seemed abandoned, but when Gray approached the door it opened softly, as if it had been waiting for them. Inside, Emily found candles and matches. As she lit the candles, illuminating the interior of the cabin, she noticed something strange on the walls. They were covered with ancient symbols and drawings of coyotes. "What is this place?" she murmured, fascinated and terrified in equal measure. Suddenly Sam began to cry, but it wasn't a normal cry. It was a high-pitched, almost supernatural sound that made the candles flicker and Gray howl in response. At that precise moment, miles away, Olivia woke up startled on the bus, with a choked scream in her throat. She had dreamed of that same cry, of that same howl. The bus came to an abrupt stop. "I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen," announced the driver. "There's a landslide on the road due to the storm. We'll have to wait here until it's safe to continue." Olivia, feeling that every minute of delay was crucial, made an impulsive decision. She gathered her small backpack and got off the bus, ignoring the driver's warnings. "I have to get to Santa Fe," she muttered to herself as she began to walk under the pouring rain. "Something tells me I can't wait." What Olivia didn't know was that her steps were leading her directly to the cabin where Emily was taking refuge. Fate, like a cosmic puppeteer, was moving the strings to reunite mother and daughter. In the cabin, Emily was desperately trying to calm Sam. Suddenly, one of the symbols on the wall began to glow with a bluish light. Gray approached and touched it with his nose, causing a section of the wall to slide, revealing a secret compartment. Inside, Emily found an ancient leather book. With trembling hands, she opened it. On the first page, written in elegant calligraphy, she read, "To the Guardian of the New Generation. When the cry of the innocent and the howl of the Guardian unite, the curse can be broken. But beware, for the price to pay might be higher than you imagine." As Emily tried to decipher the meaning of these words, Olivia struggled against the wind and rain, guided by an instinct she couldn't explain. In the distance, she saw a faint light among the trees. At that moment, lightning illuminated the sky, followed by a deafening thunder. Sam cried louder, Gray howled, and Olivia, just a few meters from the cabin, felt something inside her tear apart. Fate had decided it was time for mother and daughter to reunite, but with this reunion, a series of events would be unleashed that would test the love, loyalty, and courage of all involved. As Olivia approached the cabin door, Emily felt a strange presence. With her heart racing, she approached the window, just as another lightning bolt illuminated the exterior. And there, soaked and exhausted, she saw a face that was the reflection of her own, 15 years ago. "Olivia," she whispered, with a mixture of shock and joy. Fate had spoken. The reunion was about to happen. But with it would also come revelations that would shake the foundations of everything they thought they knew. Time seemed to stand still as Emily opened the cabin door. In front of her, soaked and trembling, stood Olivia, the daughter she had given up 15 years ago. For a moment both remained paralyzed, unable to speak or move. It was Sam who broke the silence with a soft whimper. Olivia looked at the baby in Emily's arms and then at Gray, who was watching her with almost human eyes. You're my mother, aren't you?" Olivia's voice trembled, a mixture of fear and hope. Emily nodded, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Olivia, my little girl. How—" Before she could finish the sentence, Olivia threw herself into her arms. Mother and daughter melted into a desperate embrace, 15 years of separation dissolving in an instant. Gray howled softly, as if celebrating the reunion. Sam, caught between them, let out a giggle, oblivious to the drama surrounding him. When they finally separated, Emily ushered Olivia inside. "You need to dry off, you'll get sick," she said, maternal instinct taking over. As Olivia changed into dry clothes that Emily offered her, they began to share their stories. Olivia talked about her life with her adoptive parents, the recent revelation about her illegal adoption, and how she had come this far following Mrs. Thompson's instructions. Emily, for her part, told of the years of regret, the fruitless search, and the recent events with Sam and Gray. "But there's something else," Emily said, her voice turning serious. "Something I'm just beginning to understand." She showed Olivia the book she had found in the secret compartment. As they read the cryptic words together, a shiver ran down Olivia's spine. "I've had dreams," she confessed. "Dreams about a coyote, a crying baby, and a woman who looked like you. Do you think it's all connected?" Before Emily could answer, they heard the sound of vehicles approaching. Gray became alert, growling towards the door. "They found us," Emily whispered, fear evident in her voice. Olivia, however, felt a strange calm come over her. She approached Sam and took him in her arms. The moment she did, a bright light emanated from the baby, enveloping Olivia, Emily, and Gray. Outside, the mysterious men were approaching the cabin, weapons in hand. But when they tried to enter, an invisible force repelled them. Inside, Olivia looked at her mother with eyes full of ancient wisdom. "I know what we have to do," she said in a voice that didn't seem entirely her own. Emily, amazed, could only nod. Guided by an instinct she didn't understand, she began to recite words in a language she had never learned but somehow knew. As mother and daughter joined their voices in an ancestral chant, Gray howled, a sound that resonated beyond the forest, beyond time itself. At that moment, an ethereal figure appeared in the center of the cabin. It was an older woman, with a face that blended features of Emily and Olivia. "My girls," said the apparition in a soft voice, "you're finally together. It's time for you to know the truth about your lineage and the power that runs through your veins." Outside, the mysterious men were retreating, unable to approach the cabin that now glowed with a supernatural light. Their leader, furious, shouted orders over the phone. "I don't care what you have to do, bring the baby and the women. The prophecy cannot be fulfilled." But inside the cabin, oblivious to the chaos outside, Emily and Olivia listened in amazement to the story of their family, a saga of magic, sacrifice, and love that went back centuries. What they didn't know was that this revelation was only the beginning. The hardest tests were yet to come, and the decisions they would make in the next few hours would determine not only their fate, but that of their entire family line. As the storm raged outside, inside the cabin, past, present, and future converged in a crucial moment. The curse was about to be challenged, but the price to pay might be higher than any of them was prepared to face. The ethereal figure of the old woman floated in the center of the cabin, her presence filling the space with an ancient and powerful energy. Emily and Olivia, still holding Sam, listened attentively, their minds struggling to comprehend the magnitude of what they were about to discover. "I am Hope, your great-great-grandmother," the apparition began, her voice resonating with the wisdom of centuries. "Generations ago, our family was blessed and cursed with a special gift. We are the guardians of the balance between the natural and spiritual worlds." As she spoke, images began to form in the air around them, showing scenes from a distant past, women with familiar faces, all accompanied by coyotes, performing rituals, healing the sick, protecting the innocent. "But with great power comes great responsibility," Hope continued, "and also great dangers. There were those who coveted our gift, who sought to use it for their own selfish purposes. The images changed, showing dark figures chasing the women of their lineage, hunting them through the centuries. To protect our legacy, a prophecy was created. The power would be divided, passing from mother to daughter in alternate generations. Only when mother and daughter voluntarily reunited, along with an innocent and the spirit guardian, could the full power manifest again. Emily looked at Olivia, then at Sam and Gray, finally understanding why fate had brought them together. "But why now?" Olivia asked, her voice trembling slightly. Hope smiled sadly. "Because the world is on the brink of chaos. The balance between the worlds is breaking. Only you can restore it." Outside the cabin, the mysterious men had brought reinforcements. Strange machines emitting energy pulses were trying to penetrate the invisible barrier protecting the cabin. "Those men," Emily said, suddenly remembering. "Who are they?" "They are the descendants of those who have pursued our family for centuries," Hope replied. "They believe they can steal our power, use it for their own ends. But they don't understand that the gift only works when used for the greater good." Suddenly, a loud crash shook the cabin. The barrier was giving way. "There's not much time left," Hope urged. "You must complete the ritual before it's too late." "But how?" Olivia asked, fear evident in her voice. "Trust your instinct," Hope replied, her form beginning to fade. "The knowledge is within you. You just need to awaken." With these words, the apparition vanished completely. At that very instant, the cabin door burst open. The mysterious men entered, their faces a mixture of triumph and greed. "At last," said the leader, advancing towards them. "The power will be ours." But before he could take another step, Gray intervened, growling fiercely. Emily and Olivia looked at each other, a silent understanding passing between them. Without saying a word, they joined hands, with Sam between them. A bright light began to emanate from their bodies, growing in intensity until it blinded all present. Gray howled, a sound that seemed to resonate with the earth itself. When the light dissipated, Emily, Olivia, Sam and Gray had disappeared. The men looked around, confused and furious. "Find them," shouted the leader. "They can't have gone far." But what they didn't know was that the family hadn't fled. They had been transported to a different plane, a place between worlds where time flowed differently. There, surrounded by an ethereal mist, Emily and Olivia found themselves face to face with the guardians of past generations. It was time for them to learn to use their powers, to prepare for the battle that was to come. Meanwhile, in the normal world, a frantic search was unleashed. The mysterious men combed every corner of Santa Fe, desperate to find the women and the baby. What no one knew was that the real danger was just beginning. Dark forces, much older and more powerful than the mysterious men, had sensed the awakening of the lineage, and now they were heading towards Santa Fe, determined to claim the power for themselves. The fate of not only the family, but of the entire world hung by a thread, and at the center of it all, an innocent baby, oblivious to the chaos surrounding him, held the future of everyone in his small hands. The ethereal mist swirled around Emily, Olivia, Sam and Gray. Translucent figures of women of all ages surrounded them, their faces showing familiar features that repeated through the generations. "Welcome, my daughters," spoke one of the figures, her voice resonating with a supernatural echo. "You are in the in-between realm, the place where past, present and future intertwine." Emily, still holding Sam tightly, looked around in amazement. "Why have you brought us here?" "To prepare you," another figure responded. "The enemy is stronger than you imagine. You need to master your powers if you want to have any chance of winning." Olivia stepped forward, her face showing a determination that surprised even Emily. "What do we have to do?" The figures looked at each other, as if having a silent conversation. Finally, the one who seemed to be the oldest spoke. "Each of you possesses a unique gift. Emily, you have the power of healing. Olivia, that of vision. Together, with Sam as the catalyst, you can achieve things that go beyond human understanding." As she spoke, images began to form in the mist. Emily saw her hands wrapped in a golden light, healing wounds and diseases. Olivia saw herself with eyes glowing an intense blue, perceiving events from the past and future. "But these gifts come at a great price," the old woman continued. "Each time you use them, a part of your life force will be consumed. Use your powers wisely, or you could pay the ultimate price." A shiver ran down Emily's spine. "Do you mean we could die?" "Yes, the old woman confirmed. It's the balance we maintain. Life for life, power for sacrifice. Olivia took her mother's hand, squeezing it tightly. We'll do it, she said firmly. We'll learn to use our powers, no matter the cost. The next hours, or days, it was hard to tell in this timeless place, were a whirlwind of intense training. Emily learned to channel her energy to heal not only bodies, but also minds and spirits. Olivia developed the ability to see not only the future, but also the consequences of every possible decision. Sam, meanwhile, grew at an accelerated rate in this mystical realm. In what seemed like days, the baby turned into a young child, his eyes shining with wisdom beyond his years. Gray, for his part, revealed himself to be much more than a simple coyote. He was a spirit guardian, capable of moving between worlds and protecting the family from dangers they couldn't even imagine. As they trained, the outside world kept turning. In Santa Fe, the mysterious men had unleashed a frantic search, but they weren't the only ones looking for the family. Angela, Mrs. Thompson's sister, had managed to escape her captors and was now leading a group of secret allies, descendants of families who for generations had protected the secret of Emily's lineage. In Denver, Olivia's adoptive parents, consumed by guilt and fear, had decided to confess everything they knew to the authorities. Their testimony had unleashed an investigation that threatened to expose a network of illegal adoptions that extended throughout the country. And in the shadows, an ancient and dark force began to move. Beings that were not entirely human, corrupt guardians of a power similar to that of Emily's family, but twisted and evil. They had sensed the awakening of the lineage and now converged on Santa Fe, determined to claim that power for themselves. In the in-between realm, Emily and Olivia finally completed their training. It was time to return to the real world and face their destiny. Remember, the old woman warned them before they left, the future is not set in stone. Your decisions, your sacrifices, will determine not only your fate but that of all humanity. With these words resonating in their minds, Emily, Olivia, Sam, now a child of about 5 years old, and Gray prepared to return. A blinding light enveloped them, and when it dissipated, they found themselves back in the cabin in the Santa Fe forest. But the world they were returning to was very different from the one they had left. Night had fallen, and in the distance they could see the lights of vehicles approaching. The air vibrated with a strange energy, charged with danger and possibilities. Emily looked at Olivia, then at Sam. "Are you ready?" she asked. Olivia nodded, her eyes shining with determination. Sam, much more mature than his apparent age suggested, took both their hands. "Together," the boy said, his voice mixing the innocence of childhood with an ancestral wisdom. Gray howled, a sound that seemed to defy the night itself. And so the family prepared to face whatever came, knowing that the fate of the world hung by a thread, and that they were the only hope left. The night in Santa Fe was charged with tension as Emily, Olivia, Sam, and Gray emerged from the cabin. The air vibrated with supernatural energy, and the night sky seemed darker than normal, as if the stars themselves were holding their breath in anticipation of what was about to happen. In the distance, the lights of several vehicles snaked along the forest road, rapidly approaching. Emily exchanged a look with Olivia, both understanding without words the gravity of the situation. "Mom," said Sam, his childish voice contrasting with the wisdom in his eyes, "they're coming for us. But not just the bad men. There are others." Olivia closed her eyes for a moment, using her newly acquired gift of vision. When she opened them, her gaze was filled with concern. "He's right. I see. Shadows. Beings that are not entirely human. And also, allies?" Gray growled softly, as if confirming Olivia's words. The spirit coyote seemed larger and more majestic than ever, his fur shimmering with a faint silver glow under the moonlight. "No matter what happens," Emily said, her voice firm despite the fear she felt, "we'll stay together. We're stronger united." Just then the first vehicles burst into the clearing in front of the cabin. From them descended the mysterious men, led by the same somber-looking individual they had seen before, but this time they were accompanied by hooded figures that moved unnaturally, as if they weren't entirely bound by the laws of physics. "At last," growled the leader of the men, his eyes gleaming with greed, "the power will be ours." But before they could advance further, another caravan of vehicles arrived at the clearing. From these emerged a group led by Angela, Mrs. Thompson's sister. Among them, Emily recognized with surprise Mrs. Thompson herself, as well as Olivia's adoptive parents. "You will not take another step," shouted Angela, her voice charged with authority. "This family is under our protection." The clearing quickly turned into a tense battlefield, with both sides facing off and Emily's family at the center. The energy in the air became denser, almost palpable as the supernatural powers of all present began to manifest. The hooded figures were the first to attack, launching rays of dark energy towards Emily and her family. But Gray leaped to the front, his body shining intensely, creating a protective barrier that deflected the attacks. Emily acted on instinct, her hands glowing with golden light as she channeled her healing power to strengthen her allies. Olivia, for her part, used her vision to anticipate the enemy's movements, guiding her group to dodge and counterattack. Sam, though young, proved to be the catalyst that the prophecies had predicted. His presence amplified the powers of everyone around him, both allies and enemies, taking the battle to levels of supernatural intensity. The fight extended for what seemed like hours, with both sides giving and receiving blows. The forest clearing became a chaos of lights, shadows, and mystical energies clashing against each other. Amidst the confusion, the leader of the mysterious men managed to get close to Sam. "The boy is the key," he shouted, reaching out towards him. But before he could touch him, Olivia intervened, her eyes glowing with an intense blue. "You won't touch my brother," she declared, her voice resonating with ancestral power. At that moment, Emily joined her, taking Olivia's hand with one hand and Sam's with the other. Gray positioned himself in front of them, completing the circle. A blinding light emanated from the four, expanding in a wave of energy that swept across the clearing. When the light dissipated, the dark beings had vanished, reduced to ashes. The mysterious men lay unconscious on the ground, stripped of any supernatural power they might have had. Silence fell over the clearing, broken only by the soft panting of those present. Emily, Olivia, Sam, and Gray remained at the center, exhausted but victorious. Angela approached them, a proud smile on her face. "You've done it," she said softly. "You've restored the balance." But as the adrenaline of the battle faded, Emily noticed something alarming. Sam, still holding their hands, seemed to be fading away, his form becoming translucent. "What's happening?" Olivia asked, panic evident in her voice. Angela looked at them with a mixture of sadness and resignation. "The price of power," she murmured. "There's always a price." As Sam continued to fade before their eyes, Emily and Olivia faced an impossible decision. How could they save Sam without undoing everything they had accomplished? And more importantly, would they be willing to pay the price that fate demanded of them? The night in Santa Fe held its breath, waiting to see what choice the Guardians of Balance would make. The fate of the world once again hung by a thread.